palace was never truly silent. Even in the dead of night, whispers moved through its halls like ghosts. Tonight, the whispers were about Tariq. The servants gossiped in hushed voices. The guards exchanged knowing glances. The advisors spoke his name with careful disdain. Why is he back? The king is not himself. A man like that should not be so close to the throne. Elder Bahati stood by the large window in the council chamber, staring down at the courtyard below. His jaw was tight, his expression unreadable. Tariq's return is a distraction, Elder Jabari said beside him, and a dangerous one. Bahati exhaled slowly. The king is slipping. He does not see it, but we do. The people will start to wonder, Jabari murmured. If he does not choose a queen soon, the nobles will force his hand. And if that happens, we will have no control over who sits beside him on the throne. Bahati's fingers curled around the edge of the window. Control, that was what they were losing. The solution was simple. Tariq needed to be removed, permanently. Obasi was restless. He stood at the edge of the royal gardens, the cool night air doing nothing to calm his thoughts. He had avoided Tariq all day, or at least he had tried. But Tariq was everywhere, his voice in the corridors, his name on people's lips, his presence lingering in Obasi's mind like a slow, dangerous poison. And then, as if summoned by his thoughts, footsteps sounded behind him. Running from something, Tariq's voice was smooth, teasing. Obasi exhaled sharply, turning to face him. Tariq stood a few feet away, arms crossed, head tilted slightly in that way he always did when he was trying to get under Obasi's skin. I have no reason to run, Obasi said flatly. Tariq hummed, stepping closer, his gaze sharp yet unreadable. Strange, because you've been avoiding me all day. Obasi clenched his jaw. Don't flatter yourself, Tariq smirked. Too late. Silence stretched between them, thick and charged. For a moment, neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. Then, as if drawn by some invisible force, they both took a step closer at the same time. Too close, too dangerous. Obasi's pulse thundered in his ears. This was reckless. But Tariq's breath was warm against his skin. His presence was intoxicating. And just for a second, Obasi wondered. What if he just stopped fighting? Obasi made the mistake of looking into Tariq's eyes for too long. A mistake because Tariq was searching for something. Testing. Pushing. And Obasi. He wanted to give in. Tariq exhaled, shaking his head slightly. You still hesitate, he murmured, his voice softer now, as if he could see right through Obasi's carefully built walls. Obasi's jaw tightened. You assume too much. Tariq took another step forward, and now they were too close. The world around them faded. The palace, the politics, the expectations. There was only this, only them. Tariq reached out, just the brush of his fingers against Obasi's wrist, light, fleeting, barely there. But it burned, and that was when they heard it. Footsteps, voices. They snapped apart, just as two guards turned the corner, their torches casting sharp golden light over the garden. Obasi took a breath, his chest tight. Tariq smiled, small, knowing. Careful, Your Majesty. Then, before Obasi could even gather his thoughts, Tariq turned and walked away, disappearing into the palace halls. Obasi stayed behind, staring at the empty space where he had stood. He should have felt relieved. Instead, all he felt was the ghost of Tariq's touch, lingering on his skin. Later that night, when Obasi made it back to his chambers, he let out the breath he had been holding. His hands were trembling, not from fear, not from anger, from something far more dangerous. Tariq had always been trouble, even back then, before Obasi had a crown, before duty had chained him to a throne. Tariq had been the one thing he could never fully control. And now, he was back. staring at him with those sharp, knowing eyes, testing him, pulling him closer. Obasi pressed a hand against his chest, as if that could steady the wild beat of his heart. He needed to put a stop to this. Now a knock at the door made him tense. "Enter." The door swung open, and instead of a guard or a servant, it was Elder Bahati who stepped inside, his expression cold, unreadable. "You are playing with fire, Your Majesty," he said, his voice dangerously low. Obasi straightened his posture, slipping his mask of indifference back on. "What is it, Elder Bahati?" The older man stepped further into the room, his hands clasped behind his back. "You know what this is about." Obasi exhaled through his nose. "You are concerned about my lack of a queen." "I am concerned about your lack of discipline," Bahati corrected. Obasi's gaze hardened. "I will not be lectured in my own chambers." Bahati's expression didn't waver. "Then consider this a warning. The council will not stand by while you entertain distractions." Obasi's jaw clenched. "And if I refuse to be controlled?" Bahati's smile was thin, humorless. "Then the council will do what is necessary." It was a threat, not even a veiled one. Obasi rose to his feet, stepping forward until they were nearly eye to eye. "I am the king, and no council, no elder will dictate what I do." Bahati held his gaze for a long, heavy moment. Then, with a slow nod, he turned and left without another word. But the warning lingered. Obasi needed air. The weight of the throne, the council, the expectations, it all pressed down on him, suffocating. He found himself wandering the quiet halls of the palace, drawn to the one place he knew he shouldn't go, the guest wing, Tariq's quarters. He paused outside the heavy wooden door, his fingers hovering just above the handle. A terrible idea, a reckless one, and yet... The door creaked open before he could decide. Tariq stood in the doorway, his shirt unbuttoned at the top, his dreads slightly messy, as if he had just woken up, his brows lifted in amusement. "Couldn't stay away, huh?" Obasi's throat was dry. Tariq stepped aside, his smirk deepening. "Come in or don't, but standing there looking guilty is a bad look for a king." Obasi should have walked away. He should have shut the door and pretended this never happened. But instead, he stepped inside. The door clicked shut behind him, the sound heavier than it should have been. A line crossed, a silent agreement made. Tariq took a slow step back, eyes never leaving Obasi's. "I wasn't expecting you tonight, Your Majesty," he murmured, the title laced with something almost mocking. Obasi inhaled deeply, willing himself to stay unaffected. "I wasn't planning on coming." Tariq's lips curled into a knowing smirk. "And yet, here you are." The room felt smaller with every second that passed. The flickering lanterns cast golden shadows over the walls, stretching the space between them into something fragile, something dangerous. Obasi shifted his weight, his voice cool. "I needed to speak with you." Tariq hummed, stepping further inside. "Of course. You always find me when you need something." Obasi clenched his jaw. "Don't twist my words." Tariq only chuckled, low and smooth. He turned away, walking toward the ornate wooden table at the center of the room, pouring himself a drink from a crystal decanter. "You look tense, Obasi," he said, deliberately dropping the formalities. "Let me guess, the elders had a talk with you." Obasi said nothing. Tariq laughed softly, swirling the dark liquid in his glass. "They're worried about me, aren't they?" He took a slow sip, watching Obasi over the rim of the cup. "Worried I might tempt their precious king into making reckless decisions." Obasi's fists curled at his sides. "You think too highly of yourself." Tariq tilted his head, amused. And yet, here you are. Silence. A heavy, breathless silence. Obasi took a slow, measured step forward. Then another. Tariq remained still, eyes dark, waiting. "You think this is a game?" Obasi said quietly. Tariq set his glass down with a soft clink against the table. "No, Your Majesty. I think you're afraid." Obasi stiffened. "Of what?" Tariq's gaze roamed over him, slow, deliberate. "Of me." Something inside Obasi snapped. The space between them vanished. He grabbed Tariq's wrist, firm, unyielding. Tariq didn't flinch, didn't pull away. If anything, he leaned in, lips parting slightly, breath warm against Obasi's jaw. "You've spent so long pretending you don't want this," Tariq murmured. "That you don't want me." Obasi's grip tightened. "Be careful what you assume." Tariq exhaled a quiet laugh. "You're the one holding on, Obasi." And he was. Obasi could feel the heat of Tariq's skin beneath his fingertips, the slow, steady pulse at his wrist. A dangerous beat. A temptation. He should have let go. But he didn't. Not yet. Tariq's free hand lifted, just barely brushing against Obasi's chest. A feather-light touch. A question. Obasi's breath hitched. His fingers flexed against Tariq's wrist, loosening but not releasing. Tariq's touch drifted up, slow and measured, until his fingers ghosted over the column of Obasi's throat. Obasi shuddered, a sharp inhale. Tariq's lips curled. "Still afraid?" Obasi didn't answer. He didn't dare answer. The space between them narrowed until their breaths tangled, warm, uneven. Tariq's gaze flickered downward, to Obasi's lips, closer, almost, and then, a sudden knock at the door. Obasi jerked back as if burned. Tariq's expression didn't change, but his eyes, his dark, knowing eyes, held something almost victorious. "Saved by the knock," he murmured. Obasi turned away sharply, his pulse roaring in his ears. "Who is it?" he barked, a muffled voice from the other side. "Your Majesty, the Council has requested your presence. Immediately." Obasi exhaled slowly, steadying himself. He didn't look at Tariq as he moved toward the door. Didn't dare. The council chamber was suffocating. Obasi sat at the head of the long wooden table, his hands clenched against the smooth surface as his advisors and elders droned on. Their words swirled around him like vultures circling a dying beast. "This man cannot be trusted," Elder Bako declared, his wrinkled hands gripping the edge of the table. "He is not of our people. He was raised by criminals. You should have executed him the moment he set foot in this palace." Obasi exhaled slowly, forcing himself to stay calm. "You're suggesting I kill a man who has risked his life to bring us information?" Another elder scoffed. "A man who once stole from us." Obasi's fingers curled tighter. He was a child. Does that erase the fact that he was raised among thieves? The murmurs grew louder, a storm of distrust and veiled threats. "If you allow him to stay by your side, people will talk," Elder Bako pressed. "They will wonder why a king defends a man like him so fiercely." Obasi's jaw ticked. He knew what they meant. They weren't just talking about Tariq's past. They were talking about him, about the way he looked at Tariq, about the moments of tension they had all witnessed. His grip on the table tightened. "Are you questioning my judgment, or my integrity?" The silence that followed was thick. "No one is questioning you, Your Majesty," one of the elders said carefully. "But a king must be mindful of how he is perceived." Obasi had heard enough. He pushed back his chair abruptly, the legs scraping against the marble floor. The elders tensed as he rose, his expression like a brewing storm. "I will not be told how to rule my own kingdom," he said, his voice low, dangerous. Then he turned and walked out, leaving them in stunned silence. Obasi didn't think. He just moved. His feet carried him down the winding corridors, through the palace halls, past the curious gazes of guards and servants. His mind was a mess of anger and frustration. He wasn't sure if he wanted to yell at Tariq, to push him away, or... The door to Tariq's chamber was slightly ajar. Obasi didn't knock. He stepped inside, shutting the door firmly behind him. Tariq was seated by the window, dressed in nothing but loose pants, his upper body bathed in silver moonlight. His expression barely shifted as Obasi entered, though there was something unreadable in his eyes. "You look like you're ready to fight someone," Tariq murmured. Obasi exhaled sharply. "Maybe I am." Tariq smirked. "Should I be flattered or worried?" Obasi ignored the teasing. He walked closer, the space between them growing smaller, the tension crackling. "The council wants you gone," he said, voice tight. "They think you're a danger, a distraction." Tariq tilted his head slightly. "Are they wrong?" Obasi's fists clenched at his sides. "I don't know anymore." Tariq stood slowly, his movements unhurried, deliberate. "You stormed in here," he murmured, stepping closer. "You're angry, but not just at them, are you?" Obasi's breath was shallow. "Don't start." "Start what?" Tariq's voice was low, teasing, but there was something raw beneath it. "Admit it, Your Majesty. This isn't just about politics. It's about me. It's about you and me." Obasi stiffened, his pulse hammering. "That's not—" "Tell me," Tariq interrupted, stepping even closer. "If I left tomorrow, if I disappeared from this palace, would you feel relieved?" Obasi swallowed hard. His throat was dry. Tariq's gaze was burning now, his voice quieter. "Or would you miss me?" Obasi's heart was a wild drumbeat in his chest. "I don't know," he whispered. Tariq exhaled a short, almost bitter laugh. "Liar!" And then suddenly there was no space between them. Tariq reached out, not roughly, not forcefully, but deliberately, his fingers brushing against the fabric of Obasi's robe, resting lightly against his chest. His touch wasn't demanding, but it sent a fire curling through Obasi's spine. "Tell me," Tariq murmured, voice like silk, "that you don't want this." Obasi's breath hitched. He couldn't. He should. But he couldn't. Tariq's fingers lingered, a silent challenge. His eyes were dark with something unreadable. Desire, defiance, longing, all tangled into one. Obasi was a king, a ruler. He had spent years controlling every thought, every emotion, every impulse. But this was unraveling him. Tariq took another step forward, closing the last of the space between them. His breath was warm against Obasi's skin. His voice, when he spoke again, was barely above a whisper. "If you tell me to stop, I will." Obasi's hands trembled at his sides. His throat worked around the words he should say. Tell him to stop, step back, walk away. But instead, the tension coiled tighter. The air grew heavier, and Obasi did nothing. Tariq tilted his head slightly, his lips inches away from Obasi's jaw, waiting, testing, daring. Would Obasi finally let himself go? Would he give in? Or would he run? The moment stretched, thick with unbearable anticipation. Then, and just like that, the king is falling deeper, the lines are blurring, and the tension is only getting hotter. But what happens next? Will he fight it, or finally give in? Don't miss the next episode. It's only getting juicier. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the king will risk it all? And if you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. See you soon.